is here, no turning back. Will the robots lead, or will they lack? This is a trend we just can't miss. So let's chat about bots and beers and the biz.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Bots, Beers, and the Biz. This episode, once again, you have myself, Jason Price, CEO of Aston Price LLC, along with my companion from the 10,000 Small Businesses Goldman Sachs program, Skaar.
Hey. Nice to meet you. Nice to see everyone again. Skaar over here, co-owner of Cloud Consulting Services Incorporated. Happy to be here.
We're always happy to have you too. And joining us this time, we've got a special guest, Michael O'Neill. He has been building Microsoft automation solutions for 30 years plus. He's a specialist with Copilot Studio, Azure AI, data readiness, Power Platform. Michael, thank you so much for joining us today. Glad you could come along.
That is the nicest way someone has ever described me as old that I've heard before. So here's to that.
I do actually want to kind of poke down into that. So you've got like a 20-year history with Microsoft.
Yep.
When I sat down with you the first time, I was like, what? My eyes kept rolling out of my head here. So you've been working with Microsoft and the partner ecosystem. You've built solutions. You've watched Microsoft's development over time in Azure AI, and you've created industry-leading best practices for implementing AI. Tell us your story.
Yeah, boy, you made that sound really interesting. And not
now you got to live up to it.
I will tell you something fascinating, and you youngsters, you kids, will not even appreciate what I'm about to tell you. I started at Microsoft in 1990 in what became a 20-year career, 18 as a full-time employee. And then after I left Microsoft, they foolishly brought me back again as a contractor for a year, and then they did it again and another time.
Silly.
They just don't learn their lesson. But when I was hired at Microsoft, this is crazy. My first job at Microsoft, this is back in the MS-DOS days, okay, so 1990, was to drive around and teach people how to load HiMemSys and EMM 386, which you guys probably don't even know what that is. But you had to load your device drivers in exactly the right order or your network card and your mouse wouldn't work. And I tell people that, and they're like, that's not a real job. That's not true. And I promise you, that literally was my first job at Microsoft. But anyway, I did quite a lot. Most people at Microsoft know me because I ran the national seminar team for a really long time. Had an amazing group of about 105 people. If you ever went to a TechNet event or an MSDN event, a small business event, which I know we talk a lot about small business, and Microsoft partners, they all kind of fell into that group. And I did that for about 12 years. Ended up leaving Microsoft in 2008 and have been working with various partners, teaching them how to build up their Microsoft business. Finally landed at a company called Fuji. Fuji is a solution provider. We build Microsoft solutions. I love it. It's an awesome position. I get to work directly with customers and help them deploy a lot of this technology. And much of what we're going to talk about today, AI, right? They're really excited, but they really want to learn. So this is a way to help get that message out.
And there is a lot to learn. So I know we'll kind of spend some time talking about Microsoft, but we do want to also think product agnostically, what's big out there. If we start with what Microsoft has, they have as usual, a branding problem. There's 20 different Copilots that are out there, 12 different Microsoft AI tools. It's hard to navigate, especially for somebody in small business. They've got zero clue. How do they get in there? What do all these products do? And how do they all fit into the microcosm of a small business?
Yeah. Skaar, you probably felt this too, right? You first start talking to people.
Yep.
I jumped in and said, I want to buy Copilot. And they're like, okay, which one? And I didn't know there was more than one, right? It was like, well, how many are there? And you're right. At last count, there's 18 or 20, and it's growing by the week. What you have to understand with Microsoft is Copilot, even though it's a brand name product, right? It's really Microsoft's term for any generative AI experience, okay? Think of it as more of an adjective than a noun, if you will, right? So when they say it's Copilot for Office, it's the generative experiences for Office, or Copilot for Windows. And then they have Copilot for Dynamics, and they have Copilot for Salesforce, and they have on and on and on. And each one is very different. And just like you, Jason, I was the same way. It's very frustrating. And I just look at Microsoft and say, why did you do this? You just confused everybody. But that's our job, is to go out there and help kind of explain this. So hopefully we'll get a chance today to really kind of get into what the different versions are, why you want one over the other. I'm sure Skaar has tons of experiences. Jason, you have tons of experiences too, talking to customers on how they're going to implement and use this stuff.
Yeah, I've been talking about Microsoft 365 Copilot as kind of like the productivity side. This is what snaps into your Office, your Outlook, and here you can run kind of some basic quick productivity wins for you. But then it also starts taking you up into some degree of automation, customized workflow, and then farther up. Is that what you've been seeing, Skaar?
Honestly, for me on the side of Copilot, it's been nothing in the terms of, like you said, it's a branding problem. I'm in a couple different groups, owner groups, for small businesses, and especially within staffing. And every month, we have a meeting and we like to talk about, new AI products everyone's using, and not once has Copilot been mentioned. And I think that, strongly correlates to a branding problem. Obviously, everyone knows Copilot's out there, but everyone maybe thinks it's just a ChatGPT like competitor, but they don't know what it can do, especially for businesses. Like you said, there's so many different. I bet all these businesses, they don't even talk about it. And I'm assuming on the back end, it's just because they get overwhelmed. So on my side, especially with the smaller, and these are smaller businesses, we're not even seeing any conversation about it yet. At least specifically to Copilot. So
it's interesting. I'd love to hear your guys' feedback on this. I talk to my Microsoft buds all the time, and we all joke that today, none of us could get a job at Microsoft. We'd never passed the first interview, right? They were desperate back in 1990. That's how I got in. But today they have much smarter, much more talented people. But to some degree, that's part of Microsoft's problem. And I think this extends over to AI as well. Let me explain real quick. Microsoft today is very much, especially when they hire employees, right? If I hire Jason, I hire you as a SQL specialist, and SQL to the nth degree. You are deep into SQL or SharePoint or Excel or Power BI or whatever. You specialize in that. When I joined, there was no specialties. We were generalists. We learned everything. So 1 minute I'm doing a SQL Server demo, and the next minute I'm teaching someone about Exchange, and then I'm configuring IMSys and EMM 386 for DOS and whatever. And kind of that broad approach really helped understand foundationally what Microsoft's trying to do with all this amazing technology. Roll that till today, now with AI, and I think you have the same issue. AI has so many parts and pieces of the machine, and people are not understanding how they fit together to make the big engine they need. I see your head shaking. It seems like I'm hitting a nerve there.
Oh, yeah.
That makes sense?
I hear this all the time. And that's what led to my question. How do they all fit together? I kind of think of them as a ladder, that they start with the basics and start to progress upwards, so that as your complexity of your work or your specialization in something starts to go up, then you start kind of graduating to extensions and other tools that make the most sense for you and your business. But it's different conversation for every business.
Yep.
Yeah. It's astounding. I worked there, as I mentioned, for a really long time, 2 decades. I paid my dues. I used to be really skinny, and I used to have dark, bushy hair, and those days are gone. And that was from working at Microsoft. That's what took that toll on me. I say that facetiously, but I'm free to say whatever I want about Microsoft, and I'm often their biggest critic. Yeah. With what they're doing in AI, understanding the big picture as I do, this is mind-blowing stuff. And I'm so old and It's hard to impress me these days, but what's going on with Copilot and AI is really something special. It's not a question of, is it going to take over the world? It's a question of how are companies going to understand and jump in. But the problem that these companies are having, and we keep hearing this word over and over again, is the value, the return on investment. They're just not seeing it. And it's not because the product is bad, in my opinion, from my talking to my customers. It's not because I think the product can't do what they want to do. It's because they rush so fast to get to this thing called AI and get excited about it that they kind of jumped over a bunch of steps that they kind of needed to get their strategy in place, get their security in place, get some governance in place, things that we would normally do if, let's say, we were going and starting our moving our business to the cloud. Right? They kind of skipped over that. And in their defense, I'll say one last thing. Microsoft didn't help them, right? We had a phrase at Microsoft. It was called ready, fire, aim, right? Instead of ready, aim, fire, it's get ready, pull the trigger, release the product, and then after the fact, kind of patch it and fix it and get things going. I know that's not what customers want to hear, but with AI, it was so exciting. It was so engaging. No one was going to hold back. They all jumped in, and I don't think Microsoft was quite ready with all the tools and the things they need. So now we're at a point to say, take a breath, take a step back, and let's readjust this and rethink it, because the value's there. This isn't a Microsoft AI versus an open AI. It's all the same AI. Microsoft can use any mod or LLM. They can connect with anyone. They can do anything. So it's the same value you'll get no matter where. It's just how you implement it as a customer is what matters. I'm talking too much, but I'm wondering if that's making sense to you guys.
No, I mean, that's completely right. I mean, just even outside of Microsoft's Copilot, you see that with all different types of AI products now. I mean, you just look up, right, AI agent, and the Google results will be insane. It'll go on for pages and pages. Yeah. Everyone's making an AI company, product, service. It's like the dot-com bubble again. And everyone's also rushing to it. And so now you're going to see, like you said, we need to take a step back. It's still a little early, I think, in the AI lifecycle where people are still trying to rush to it. But like you said, we need to take a step back and talk about these things of governance, security. Are these products, I mean, outside of Copilot, just all general, are they actually legitimate and work well and don't have any bias or, hallucinations or anything like that? So you're absolutely right. Like, it's exactly like the dot-com bubble where, everyone rushed to it, but like, we'll see who actually survives and what type of products last or services last over time as well.
Yeah. I laugh because I got into Midjourney. I don't know if you've done any of the generative, image creation.
They're fun.
I was doing Midjourney, and I'm doing these amazing things with a unicorn flying with a gorilla on its back over the Alps, and I'm showing my wife, and she's like, great. How does this apply to business? My wife that said this, and I'm like, I don't know, but it's really cool. If I ever need a gorilla on a unicorn, same thing for our customers. It's fun to get excited about it, but you need to build a strategy that's ultimately going to talk to increasing your profits, lowering your expenses, and probably most important, and Jason, I know you're a big fan of this, don't forget your employees. They are the most important group out there. And right now, I think there's a lot of them that feel threatened by AI, and they shouldn't.
Big time.
AI absolutely should be a tool that they use to help them get rid of all that mundane work that they don't want to do so they can focus on the stuff they do. Does that make sense, Jason?
Oh, God. I think you're hitting it. There's some that are a little bit scared of it and are hesitant to get to it. But then the younger the employees, the more apt they are to be already jumping onto it. They're probably already bringing, I think there was a stat of 62% of workers are already bringing AI to work, whether it's licensed for them or not. They're using it to help them out with at least a third of their job. And that's good, but they may not want to confess the fact that they actually are doing that. They just look, hey, I'm that much more productive. I got a little bit more time now to spend on the strategic stuff or go downstairs, have a beer, whatever it happens to be. But it's like reinvestment of time at the individual level. So the question becomes, at the company level, how do we reinvest that time? Which are the most important use cases to identify for us so that we can then train everybody up on, so they get back that time and then can reinvest it into their domain expertise, or spending it with customers, internal or external, whatever the case may be, of where that time goes back in.
Yeah. I've got a great story. My brother, I have 5 brothers. My oldest brother, Jim, is a semi-famous architect. He's done really well. Grew a big architecture firm. He had 50 other architects working under him. And I was talking to him and I said, you finally made it, right? You got this big architecture company and everything's going great. And he's like, it just sucks. And I was like, how could you say that? This is what you dreamed about. And he goes, I don't get to be an architect anymore. Right? Sure. He just wants to draft and draw and create and design and engage with customers. What he's doing is payroll. What he's doing is working on insurance. He's figuring out what the city will allow and, building permits and stuff. He's like, I hate this job. It's the worst of the worst of, it's what I never wanted to do as an architect. And I'm working with him now to say, this is what AI can do. It can free you back up to go do what you're best at doing and get you out of what you hate. And so he'll be my test subject. If I can turn him back to a happy state and where he gets to draw and design and do the things that make him, a great architect.
Skaar, it sounds like his brother is like right in line with us and our peers inside the Goldman Sachs program.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone hates working on their business, the payroll part, because like he said, he wants to draw, he wants to actually design. But then you're forced, especially if you become, your own business owner, you're forced to learn how to do payroll, how to do accounting, right? If you're not big enough HR. So you're right. This is the exact tool. Like AI will help these guys, help all these small business owners who have this domain expertise go back to that, go back to what they're actually really good at, and let all this other stuff just be taken care of, essentially.
I tell you, though, that's never going to happen unless the business leaders step up and say, we need to think about this strategy, right? We need a blank sheet of paper, and let's not go draw pretty unicorns with gorillas on their back, but let's come up with real, tangible ways, return on investment, something that we can do. I have argued for a long time, and I made this argument to my Microsoft friends. Customers got so big, AI focused. They were trying to hit grand slams right off the first batter, right? And what I suggest, and I suggest this especially for small business, pick something really small. Just dip your toe in the water, but make it tangible. Make it something that's going to save you time or save you money, and have it in a smaller defined space. I know as partners, we're supposed to sell the big grandiose projects that cost billions of dollars, and no, forget that. What I would recommend is just find something you hate about the job that's critical that we could replace with AI and see how well that goes. And I just think customers will come back with this argument of this is the best return on investment I've ever had in my business, right? Then get out of that grunge work and start doing some cool stuff.
Well, I guess a question I have right now is, how do these customers currently look at return on investment with AI products? Is it just like how much time they're saving compared to the cost? Like, what exactly are they looking at right now, and what should they look differently in the future?
Yeah, I apologize. Do you want to answer that, Jason, or should I?
I'll take it. So
okay.
We were talking about how defining what are your primary use cases so that you can understand where's most of everybody's time going in right now. And once we get back that time, how can we repurpose it? But then for each of those use cases, there's some type of metric associated, some KPI that you can associate with it. And if that's the case, if it's leading to, customer satisfaction, your CSAT score, or it's going into the revenue, or it's reduction of risk, or it's whatever that KPI is, define what that is and tie it to that use case, right? So that when people are performing, it's not just time that's coming out, but it's that affected metric. And then that tells you now in a different shape exactly how the organization is getting value out of the technology. All those things together add up. So if you're a small business, you have to put into this ROI calculation the cost of the licensing, the cost to train everybody, the total cost of ownership. And out of that, you take then all of these metrics and time saved, and then you do like a balance sheet equation on it. Investment in, output out. And then you have an idea of what measurable benefits you're gaining from it. And if you're seeing it, then you can continue to invest in that degree. If you're not seeing it, then you've got to say, okay, maybe we're missing on the training element. Maybe we haven't identified the right cases. Maybe have we asked our employees what they think about this? What are their ideas? Do they see opportunities that we haven't? Do they have additional concerns we're not addressing? So I think that helps to then right size that equation, and then you can continue to kind of invest upward.
And I think that kind of goes back to Michael, what you're saying about strategy, right? I feel like a lot of these small businesses are going in, they don't know exactly what these AI products are going to help their business, but they're just hoping that they'll see some sort of ROI. And I think, at least maybe initially, most people's perception is, oh, this will just save me time. And that is the only thing they look, track, or anything like that. Well, like you said, Jason, there's definable KPIs for if you have a strategy to, automate or make things more efficient, then you can have KPIs that actually determine that ROI. And like you said, it's all about strategy, which in the rush of all this whole new hype, people are forgetting.
I think it's because the hype is technology centric. And really, to do this correctly, you have to be people centric and process centric to break down how there's a lot of business leaders that have been surveyed recently by McKinsey, and they're saying 47% of them say, I'm going to spend probably a third of my time re-engineering our processes, taking those SOPs, breaking them down, inserting AI in the places that it makes sense to automate or streamline, gain back that time, and then reinvesting in the other areas where it's giving you the output.
Yeah. Something that Skaar said, I love what both you just brought up, and I think it's dead on. You were talking about companies probably focus a little too much effort on the return on investment on time, right? And when you think about business in particular, what's the biggest time sink that businesses have? And the answer is bringing employees up to speed, hiring, training, staffing, putting them in. And it goes back to the same kind of argument where if an employee is doing something that's not challenging to them, if it's mundane, if they hate their job because it's just repetitive, or if they feel because leadership hasn't said anything about AI, they just have it in their brain that, oh, here it comes, the computer's going to fire us all and we're not going to have, right? There's already this adversarial thing set up. Well, if that employee leaves because they don't think they're going to future have a job because the leader didn't say, look, AI is a beneficial tool to you, my employee, it's not there to replace you. Those employees are gone, and now you're right back to square one where you got to invest more time, more money, more effort to bring new people on board. The cycle just continues. It's those hidden kind of costs that I think, especially in small business, really sneak up on people, and they don't really think about it when they think of that grand strategy, but every bit of that matters. I got a chance with Microsoft. They sent me off to Kellogg School of Business. I got to study with them for a good while. And the professor and the dean of the school actually taught me this concept of value, and I'm going to share it for 2 seconds because I think it's fantastic. He said that, we talk about ROI as bringing value to the company, and he said, well, what does value mean? What actually is that term? And we all tried to come up with some definition. We all failed miserably, right? What he explained is value is the benefit that you get as opposed to the next best alternative. And I know that sounds weird, but when you start to think of it in those terms, I could go to a seminar and learn about AI, or I could go play golf and I love to play golf, and the weather's nice, and so I really want to go play golf. For me to determine that that seminar was worth my time, it gave me value, it has to give me more benefit than a day of golf out on a beautiful day with my friends would be. And we'd actually learn to quantify that. Okay, well, how much is that? How much does golf cost? It's, $200 a round. Okay, and then you're going to have some drinks, and then let's put a price. Let's say it's $1,000. I have to deliver at least $1,000 of value in the seminar, or you're going to walk away and think, well, that was a waste of my time. AI is kind of the same thing, right? Return on investment. We have to think of it in terms of that next best alternative. It's just a different way of thinking, but I always thought that was a really cool way of kind of approaching the problem.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds exactly like kind of the, opportunity cost when you think about business and going into the next venture, what you want to do. And it's kind of a similar vein where you're not competing against not doing it. You're competing against the next best option. And AI tools, and if you use it as a tool, will always just supersede, will have the best value. And especially for employees, I know we've been talking about employees a little bit. Employees probably are finding better ways to do their job easier and easier. So they're probably already using AI. I mean, at least, we're talking about business life, but I know on the student side, in education, I think saw a study, over 80% of students right now use a chat GPT, right? People are going to use it, and they're going to, utilize however they want to use it, they're going to utilize it. So it's better as a business owner or as a leader to get ahead of it, right? Have a strategy in mind so the employees aren't just going off willy-nilly and maybe, worry about your protection or anything, information security and things like that. But if you have a strategy in mind, like we discussed, you have the proper, KPIs and everything, a small business can truly use an AI tool and just go to the next level. And that's what it's here for. I mean, if you look at it, all these AI tools, I mean, they argue, oh, this will bring your business to the next level, but it really can, because it allows efficiency at a higher level. It's just about making sure you do the pre-work.
All right.
Yep.
So say I'm that small business. I buy into AI. I'm going to get something out of it. I have done my strategy work, so I have an idea of exactly how I want to be using it for which cases. How do I determine what's the best solution? Should it be Copilot? Should it be ChatGPT? Should it be OpenAI? Should it be Claude? Should it be Gemini? Where do I go to kind of compare and contrast these tools so I know what's the best for us?
Yep. So I'd love to answer that because I've been thinking a lot about this. I read constantly, right? I'm trying to figure out what Microsoft says, and I'm trying to figure out what everyone else in the world says. I kind of boiled this down. To me, there's three questions that you really kind of need to think about in general. And because there's so many ways that you can take it, you're exactly right. There's so many different types of AI platforms and LLMs and solutions and you name it. But as leaders think about this, there's a whole trend right now on low code, no code, right? And defining that as just simply, you don't need a full team of programmers writing thousands of lines of code in order to come up with some of these solutions. I always like the analogy in the days of Excel, right? We came out with Excel and people really got into Excel macros and formulas, and they built just the most amazing models inside of Excel. I'm not even sure Microsoft intended that in its original purpose, but they did it. Those are business people. Those are not programming majors. And that same concept is now kind of flown through, especially in the Microsoft world, but we're seeing it elsewhere where you don't have to be a four-year college degree, programmer to be able to learn how to use these tools and things. So are you going to use low code, no code, or are you going to do you have a full team of programmers and you want to go the full custom development? That's question number one. And the options kind of flow from there. Number two, Microsoft also has come out with some models, right? Everyone knows Microsoft invested in ChatGPT. They put in billions of dollars. From that, they were able to create their own Microsoft version of ChatGPT. That's the best way to think about it. It's Microsoft's version, but it's built on all the concepts that came from OpenAI. So it works very similar and works great. So you can just use Microsoft's model to get started. And because it has all the natural language engine and because it has all the great features, it just works. You don't have to do a whole lot. You can get up to speed very, very quickly. There are many organizations, however, that say, well, wait a minute, I'm a specialty business. And that LLM, that knowledge base, doesn't know anything about dentistry or doesn't know anything about, shipbuilding or whatever. So I want to train or change that model and teach it more about what I do. That's a custom large language model. It's a custom LLM. Tons of tools. So question number 2, are you going to use one that's already there? You go out to Hugging Face and find a model that fits you. Are you going to use ChatGPT? Are you going to use the Microsoft model? Or are you going to just take one of those as a base and then start teaching it yourself and building on top of? And depending on how you answer that question will also determine which tool you come up with. And then the last thing is, where's your data primarily located, right? If you are a Microsoft shop and you've been using Microsoft for years and years and years, where is your data? You're pointing to it. What is it?
It's right here inside my account, my Microsoft account.
It's your email.
That would be the natural fit.
It's your Office files. It's your SharePoint. It's Teams. It's all that stuff that Microsoft already has running inside the environment. So it's ready to go. If you're not a Microsoft shop, maybe you have used a third-party service, or you need to connect with an external group, or you work with the government, you need to pull files from government sites. That external nature will also define those. So those 3 questions, right? Are you using low code, no code, or do you have a developer group? Are you going to use your Microsoft models and the pre-baked models, or do you want to roll your own and build it from scratch? And then the third thing is, where's your data primarily stored? And all the tools that Microsoft has, and there's plenty, and all the tools that everyone else has basically helps answer those 3 questions based on where you go. We've talked about building a flow chart. We've talked about making it so you can, kind of navigate and say, okay, I'm here and I want to be here. How do I get there? And so I'm actually working on that and putting that together. But if you can answer those 3 questions, I have it all written out in a form now, and maybe we'll share that out with the viewers. But that will take you 90% to answering the question that you just put. I would love to show you one thing just to make sure everyone's okay. I've got a quick demo. You want to see a demo real fast?
Yeah, I was going to actually ask you. So go ahead and start sharing, and I'll preamble this because I was thinking, okay, so now we have settled on what we want to do. How do we see what's capable? Do you have like a something that can show its ability to perform exactly those complex or those customized workflows for us?
Right. So let me pop this down here for a second. I've shared the wrong screen. That was brilliant.
Oh, at some point, I think we lost Skaar. I don't know where he went.
You went to get more beer, I think.
Well, I just had to refill myself. I think he'll be back shortly.
Okay, so let me pull this over, because I tell this story, and it's one thing to hear the story. It's a whole nother thing to see it. So I'm going to show you something that's amazingly cool that small businesses should just go nuts over, and then I'm going to scare everyone with this. Okay, let me explain what I mean.
Great.
I got a Microsoft Copilot subscription, and I put it on my own domain. So this is my little family website stuff. I'm a musician, so I play lots of instruments. I've got a piano right next to me, and guitars and basses and everything else in the world around me.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I didn't say I'm a good musician. I said I am a musician.
Okay.
But so I have, over the years, accumulated probably 50 to 70,000 pieces of music that I play. But you can't carry that around if you want to go over to someone's house and have a jam session or something, right? It's not possible. So I've been digitizing all of my music. I own it all. It's all my copyright. I don't share it with anyone. But what I've done is I've been keeping it inside of SharePoint. Now, if you're familiar, SharePoint is OneDrive. OneDrive is Teams. They're actually all the same technology. They're all the same product. They're just kind of different views of the same thing. So once you put that data in there, it's readily available in your Microsoft ecosystem. Remember, Jason, one of the questions I asked was, is your data external or internal? If it's internal, if it's already there, you don't have to do anything to prep it. You don't have to do anything to teach the LLM about it. You don't have to do anything. When you buy Copilot, it knows it. And it
Yep.
suddenly goes out there and does it. So I was trying to set this up. I installed Copilot. I have done nothing on this Copilot. I haven't trained it or spent any time on it at all. But I want to show you, if you can see my screen, I'm just going to go in here and say, what Beatles songs do I have? It already knows what I'm about to ask. Oops, hit the wrong button. Beatles songs do I have? And I go out there, and it, again, looks through all of my information and it finds it. Now, what's interesting is it's finding the individual songs, like Here Comes the Sun, a PDF that contains Here Comes the Sun by the Beatles. It also found it in a collection book that I have where I put the cheater notes. So when I'm out playing, I just get the chords and the lyrics, right? I don't need all the notes and all the notation and stuff.
Right.
So in seconds, it's able to do this. And then I said, well, wait a minute. What if I went really crazy? What Beatles songs do I have in E minor? Now, remember, I haven't taught it anything about music. And in music, we play in different scales and stuff.
So EM could be anything.
Oh, it came back and said it couldn't find anything. I did find Daily, Here Comes Sun. Okay, that's interesting because before it found about 20 songs in E minor, even though I never taught it what musical scales were or anything else about it. So I can keep going. Which Beatles songs have the word love in it that were written in 1963 that has a F sharp or whatever? And it'll go and pull that data, again, without me doing anything. So this is where I blow everyone's mind. Cool demo, love it. Here's the scary thing. And I think that Skaar mentioned this earlier, that it can be a positive, but without governance, without security, without everything, what is it indexing? And the answer is everything.
Everything,
including
that you have access
your
to?
Excel file with all your payroll information on it, including your corporate secrets, including all the stuff that you really don't want the rest of the world to know. If you don't have governance, if you don't have security in place, you turn on Copilot, and Skaar mentioned this, right? Employees, whether their company wants them to or not, they're already playing with it. They're already jamming it out there and bringing it to work and stuff. And it has the ability to go out and look at everything. So what I've been doing lately, a lot of this with my customers, the very first thing we do is we shut off as much of it as possible until we identify exactly what should be shared and with whom, and put those levels of security and governance back in. Does that make sense?
The fun of data leakage.
Yes, data leakage is such a blast. But that is a serious problem. So again, this goes back to strategy. The owner of the business needs to not only think about what problem are they solving, but they also need to think about what is AI going to be made aware of and what should it not be made aware of until I'm 100% sure and feel confident that it's going to work for me and not against me. There have been a couple of big news stories where the executives' compensation was just blasted out to everyone in the org because they didn't think about maybe we should have protected that folder in SharePoint, right? Same kind of thing.
Demotivator.
Yep, demotivator. So I just want to show that demo because I think it's very cool, but at the same time, it is very, very scary, depending on how you're doing it.
So this is comparable if I go to ChatGPT on the web and I want it to search things for me. It will go and recall it, and it's using the entire web database that it has at its disposal as its data source, and the LLM is processing that, and then that's basic search and retrieval. And I know that.
So the answer is no. I don't know if you knew that what you were going for, but I want to make sure because this is an important point.
Go ahead. Stop
This is a difference between Microsoft and the rest of the world. Okay. You're 100% correct. If I use ChatGPT, whatever I put into my chatbot is going to be passed out to ChatGPT into the knowledge collective of ChatGPT. So if I'm a CEO, let's say I work at a major oil company, and I'm looking at future plots where we think there might be oil and we're trying to buy up the land and stuff, and I want to check on which county they are and everything. If I use ChatGPT, my information about where that oil is and those secrets are actually going to be shared out with the collective knowledge of the rest of the world.
Right.
The one cool thing that Microsoft does that separates them from a lot of others, because they're in the Microsoft ecosystem. Remember, we said whether your data is in the system or out of the system. If it's in the system, Microsoft can assure you and even offer legal indemnity, meaning, they could be sued and they have insurance policies that cover this and everything else, that none of your corporate data will leak outside of your organization. That's why Microsoft built their own version of ChatGPT so they could keep everything internal. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I think it's a huge,
No, that's fine.
huge point.
And that is the enterprise data protection agreement that Microsoft has with all of its customers on the paid accounts. And so that's valid. What you were showing us was the search and retrieval use case, whether it's going and in this case, Copilot going to data inside your Microsoft account, be that email, meetings, documents, chat, all that stuff. And retrieving that information, which is a basic use case. It's one I highlight all the time. I've got training for a legal firm next week, and that's one of them that they're high on, because they want to make sure that if they can put in a particular legal case, that it'll reference the documents that they already had for it. So that's a big one, but it's not the only one. Do you have, and I just got a note from Skaar, his internet died.
Oh, no.
And we were so careful. We're like, okay, I'm going to run my Windows update right now, make sure that everything's kosher, so that, but that's where he is right now. No AI tool is going to help you out of that problem. So, that's everything that I know small businesses are about that, and utilizing. So let's equate this, what we have Copilot with, say, Gemini on a Gmail account, or Claude on a database that they have, or this is where those differentiations come into play. Like, do you need, where's your data? There's probably something that sits on top of that if it's a common cloud platform. Yep. And then that's your question number 3. But then, how complex do you have to get with it?
Let me show this. This is a presentation that I use all the time. Screen. Hopefully, I'll share the right screen this time.
Hey, let's try it.
Window and that one, and share. Okay. So this is kind of what you were just talking about. What is the workflow, right? What is this thing going to do? And we break it down into kind of 5 easy pieces. This isn't super technical, so don't worry, I'm not going to lose anybody, right? But we ingest data, so we take data in, we store it in what's called a vector database. We then go and train it and index it so we can quickly get back to that data. And then we start asking questions and looking for returns. Pretty simple stuff, right? It's basically these 5 steps.
Right.
If you look at non-Microsoft world, okay, and I'm not saying Microsoft is the absolute end-all be-all. I do believe they have an incredible solution, and I'm trying to explain kind of how they differ. For some organizations, it'll be better. For some organizations, it might not be so good. But for non-Microsoft solutions, when they ingest data, the first thing they got to do, and I'm going to go back one slide because I got a question for you. When you look at these, ingest data, store in the vector, train it, index it, ask questions, and return results. Jason, for 1 million imaginary points, because that's all I got to give, which of these is the hardest to do?
I bet it's storing it in the vector database.
You would be incorrect. Believe it or not, we kind of mentioned this. The number 1 trip up for businesses out there, without question, is number 1, ingesting the data. If you have garbage data, if you have data with a bunch of duplicates, if you have data that needs to be archived because there's stuff from 1920 in there, right? Or there's a bunch of scrambled up data or whatever's in your data, when you apply AI on top, that's what's going to come out of that data. And so
Okay.
we get companies all the time like, I'm excited and I want to get going on AI and this is awesome. And we immediately sit down and start talking about the data and we find out you're a year away, maybe 2 years away from being ready for this because your data is so messed up. You have to get your data under control. You've got to get it cleaned. And there's plenty of tools, and there's even AI tools coming out that'll help you clean it and secure it and optimize it and do all that. But that step one is by far and away the most time-consuming process of the whole thing. It's the hardest thing to do in a while.
Data quality.
Data quality. And I think, a lot of people will tell you horror stories about this where they tried to go do amazing AI solutions and the AI started throwing out hallucinations and garbage and tons of bias and everything else. And a lot of that comes because that data is just in a completely messed up state. So anyway, let's just real quick go through this. And it won't take long at all. I apologize for too much. But when you ingest data in a non-Microsoft world, you have to create these connectors into those various data sources. Microsoft has an advantage that all their data is kind of seen as one unified, result, whether that's Dataverse or SQL or whatever the case may be. Now they have what's called Microsoft Fabric. It kind of unifies it into one data source. But in the rest of the world, you kind of have to go to Postgres and you have to write Python code and you have to do all this other stuff. You tend to want to migrate that into a common data source, again, so you can control it. You can put security, you can put governance. Much easier to govern one unified database than 12 random attached, disparate data sources. And then you have to go do all that cleaning and, as I said, rationalizing it, get rid of the duplicates, et cetera. Once you get past that, you got to go store it. And you've already pointed this out. There's just a bazillion vector databases and solutions. People have probably heard of Elasticsearch, Redis, Vespa, Chroma, on and on and on, all kinds of databases. Then there's all kinds of ways to train it. Hugging Face has a whole page full of thousands of transformers and PyTorch and TensorFlow and all these things that'll help you index and kind of work your magic. But each one works slightly different than the other. Each one your employee is going to have to be trained on separately to do kind of a different deal. And then when you get to the ask stage, are you going to do this as a chat bot or what they call an API endpoint, which means your program can talk to it and get data back from the data through this API endpoint. And you have to do all that in order to get your answers. What Microsoft has done, and this is interesting, now you may or may not know about this. Are you familiar with Microsoft Graph?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that is the collection of the network of nodes around a particular user, the documents, the people that they have meetings with, the people they email, the people they chat.
For 1 bazillion imaginary points. I should not keep setting you up like this, but I think it's fun. I will tell you, no one gets this answer correct. When was Graph introduced to the Microsoft world? What year? And I'll give you 5 years on either side.
Okay. 2007.
Oh, you are almost right on the money. 2005.
Really?
Yeah. So it has been out for 20 years. And when I talk to customers, most don't even know it exists. What it is it was Microsoft 20 years ago kind of realizing where all this was going. And they started to make connections between your Outlook contacts and people you work with, your documents and projects that you might be engaged on, right? Graph is the thing that kind of draws lines between all these disparate things and tries to figure out what they are and how they work. So this is why with Microsoft, when we talk about ingesting data, it's already done this work ahead of time. That's Microsoft Graph. It already knows how your Office documents and all your files on OneDrive and SharePoint and Teams, even the chat conversations, even the phone conversations, it's indexed those, it understands conceptually what they are, and it's already got it prepared and ready to go. So I don't have to go back and spend all this time rationalizing the data and going through and migrating and making these connections and stuff. It's already done. Again, storing in a vector database, Microsoft primarily uses something called Dataverse, right, which is its unified database program. And they've even come out with something relatively new called Microsoft Fabric, which kind of pulls it all together into a single interface. So easy to work on versus back here where I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are just the top ones. I think these are the top 10 I pulled.
Yeah.
It's probably 100. So you get the point. I don't have to belabor this. But when I want to train and index, don't have to worry about it. Copilot does that for me. It already figured it out. It already knew about the Beatles songs. It already knew what key signature they were in.
Nice.
It already knew which songs had the word love in it, right? I didn't have to do any training on it whatsoever. So the last part I'll mention on this, and then we'll get back to the regular topic. But this is if you just want to use Copilot. Remember, Copilot is this generative experience. It's not the Copilot project per se, but it's the whole concept. That's if I want to use the low code, no code, ready to go, off the shelf, install it, and I'm off to the races. Life is great. And I put this asterisk here by this ready prepared, because remember, it's going to do it whether you want it or not. If you didn't put security on your data, it's going to show everything on your network. So we do want to put some governance. We do want to put some security. These last little teal boxes, though, are what if you do want to train your data? What if you do want to go out and, build your own custom LLMs and other things? These are the tools that you can use for that. So Microsoft created Copilot Studio, a whole branch of Azure called Azure AI, which allow you to do things like Azure Databricks and Azure Blob Storage to store your records in, Azure Machine Learning to go out and teach, Azure Search, which goes out and helps you, down to the micro level, train and index your data so that it doesn't matter how many different ways you ask a question, you're going to come back with the right answer every single time. And then Azure OpenAI is their collaboration with OpenAI. So again, if you don't want Microsoft's model, you can rip and replace everything that Microsoft has by their default Copilot model, and you can put in anything you find on Hugging Face. Microsoft even has something called the Azure AI Foundry, which is their version of Hugging Face. Thousands of models, pick and choose which one you want. You can build your own solution. So they're kind of hedging their bet here, right? They're making it super easy so you can dive in and do what you want as fast as possible. But they're also saying, but if you really want to go build it yourself, we've also put all those tools together to help you do that.
I've got some blob storage downstairs in my garage, but I don't know any small business that would want to use that.
Let me stop sharing that and get back. I'm sorry, that was probably a longer definition than I meant to, but hopefully that kind of explains to people, when you look, it's just list after list of name after name, and it's very, very confusing.
How do you weigh them out?
Yep. And we're trying to just kind of say, look, you can do it the easy way, the no code way, or if you want to, you can advance yourself out to the, build it yourself, do it yourself kind of method.
Yeah. And I think that'll be very helpful, especially for small businesses that are trying to make their way through things. They're getting hit by so many different directions with so many different choices. It makes it really difficult.
Well, so there's one thing that I know you do, and you have not brought this up, and you did not tell me to bring this up. I just thought about it.
What is that?
Well, change management, right?
Yeah.
It is a huge part of what I think is also missing, and we haven't said anything about it. Can you explain in general terms why it's important and what you do to kind of help that process?
Yeah.
I know people are going to think that was a setup question. It wasn't. I just know it's really important, and I know that's a specialty of yours.
And this is where it comes to play. Like when you're evaluating, when you are strategizing, if you have been focused solely on the technology, well, then you end up with, okay, we have gaps now over here on the governance side with our security, with our training, and we're only seeing it from our perspective, how much we can kind of all bring to the table as leaders of this business, what we're gathering together, versus tapping into what already exists and building out following a framework, tapping into the knowledge that already exists with our employees, with our managers, prioritizing the people over the technology, not leaving AI to just being an IT project. It is going to impact every side of our business. And so we have to tap into what's already there.
I agree with you, but
engaging our
how do you
employees.
do that? Oh, look who's back.
Oh, thank
Did you have to
God.
run to the store and get your beer? Is that what that was?
I don't know what happened. Internet just died, and I had to restart my modem and my tower that I have.
no.
So
Whatever you do, don't go back and watch any of this because we've been talking about you the whole time.
okay,
Just
won't do,
terrible
won't
quote.
do, won't do.
I'm joking. So we were talking about, you were just mentioning about kind of setting this up. So I want to dive deeper in that, though, because great, I understand the need for it. How do I do it? How do I get my employees to feel bought in on the thing? How do I,
Yes.
what do you tell people? What do you tell organizations?
Yep. I tell them you should start with employees. You should survey them. You should do your focus groups, have your conversations, stop people at the water cooler, be understanding from them the opportunities that they see, the concerns that they have, because that's great data that can, number one, feed up to your leadership as they're trying to determine what's our vision and our path for doing this. And number two, you're identifying leaders right up out of that information that can fit into your center of excellence, who are going to be the people that define your best practices with all of these. So as you say, well, these are the use cases we want to do, they're the ones that can say, well, you should do it this way and not that way, so you don't get stuck with these traps, and are the ones that can influence and drive that change with the people that they influence in the organization. It's like,
is there a formal way to do
leadership
that?
scale.
I know you've used the word council before, and I don't really know what a council per se is. I assume I know, but...
So there are actually, I think of three layers of the organization. The center of excellence, what we just talked about, are your influencers and who will train people below them. Then you've got your leadership up top who are measuring their KPIs from those use cases and the ROI that's being generated from it in addition to time saved. But creating an AI council in the middle, these are like your secondary leadership, your VPs and your directors that can see what's going on in the organization and create a vision for how to apply it, are the ones that initially generate those use cases and push them down to the center of excellence and hang success criteria on those, the KPIs, so that in the end they can define the right policies to ensure that they're addressing the employee concerns that we heard about. That they fear they're being replaced. They are losing their social identity with now having AI take on more and more of their role. So the policies will allow that organization to say, hey, we're invested. We believe in getting through this together. We're going to ensure you get the training that you need. We're going to ensure that it is fair and equitable and everything is transparent across the board so that it puts everybody's minds and hearts at ease.
You said the T word, training, right?
Yeah,
that is a dirty word in some worlds, right?
Is it?
It shouldn't be. We all know
No.
it absolutely shouldn't be. But I've often found, especially when times get tough, that's the first thing people throw out the window. And they shouldn't. It's the thing that'll hurt them the most.
Yeah. This is not just another plug and play type of technology. So AI training is critical for understanding it. Like, what is this thing? What is it doing with my information? How can I ask it the right questions? The art of prompting. But a lot of people don't get the training that they need from their employers. So where are they getting it? They're learning it at home. They're figuring it out on their phone. They're asking their kids. They are kind of self-training themselves. They're unsupported at work. And so they bring all of that type of learning into the office. Is that really what you want? No, you want to organize that and train them on the best practices that your center of excellence defines.
Yeah.
And not only that, I mean, you'd also, if you don't train them or have any established guidelines, they might use programs that are not secure, information-wise, security-wise, all that stuff. So, training is a huge component. I actually, late last year, did a sales training, and in it they talked a lot about AI, how to use ChatGPT to help you, how to prompt it, how to train it so that it recognizes like your type of writing and everything. So that type of training, helps people understand it's a tool that can help with what you're trying to do, not replace it, right? But it's just a tool that will at least allow you to maybe quickly write an email or something like that. And because you've already set the guidelines and everything in the past with how you want it, how your voice is, it works well. So like that training itself was wonderful, because not only I learned sales training, but I also learned within the sales industry what's a good way to utilize ChatGPT and help me maybe become a better salesperson.
I've got a good story for that, actually. So I did training for a long time, and I was working with a very large insurance company. I won't tell you the name, but they were based in Hartford, Connecticut. Gee, I wonder who that is. Anyway, I did a kind of a U.S. tour all around their offices. And this is, I guess, is kind of what you're talking about with the council and change management. We came up with this concept of ninjas. I don't know why we picked that name. It's a goofy name. But we picked a couple of people, a whole group, actually about 12, 15 people, and we gave them extra training. We made them feel extra special. And then we sent them out into the rest of the workers to kind of spread like a virus, if you will. So they'd watch someone and they go, there's an easier way to do that. Watch this, blah, 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 blah. And suddenly people were coming back and saying, well, why are they a ninja and I'm not a ninja? It's like, well, I might be able to pull some strings and get you into the ninja program, but I can't guarantee you. And the number one criteria is that you're breathing, right? That's pretty much, we'd accept anyone into the ninja program. But they felt there was some kind of special whatever, right? And soon we had huge demand for people that all wanted to get into the ninja program. And it's that, it's getting out ahead of change management and building this desire that comes from the employees themselves. And they really did. Yes. I mean, it wasn't fake. They got tons of value out of this, and they really wanted to be a part of it. But it's pulling the demand for training rather than pushing it down their throats.
Right. Yep. And so if you have such a large pill to swallow of this change, getting out in front of it, getting people engaged, enabling them early and continuously. I read that skilling is not, in 5 years, half of the skills that you have today will be obsolete because you'll be farming those manual tasks, those mundane duties that you have to do out to AI. And in the meantime, you'll be focused on the more high value activities that you're doing. So that means that you're going to have to invest more in these areas and push off as much as possible. This is more of that value now that comes to play for AI for your organization.
Well, actually, now that you brought that up, that thought came to my head. I think that also ties into why employees kind of think they're getting replaced with AI, because maybe currently a lot of their work is mundane. They spend a large amount of their time just doing mundane work, writing emails, whatever. And so then now they're having this access to this tool that allows them to do all that stuff within, 10 minutes maybe. What are they supposed to do with the rest of their time? And
I've got a great story if I could just inject.
I do too.
Yeah,
this is hilarious. This is a truism that happened at Microsoft. Yeah. Microsoft filmed this commercial. They probably don't want me telling this story, but it's so great. I'm going to tell it anyway. They filmed this commercial, and the guy's using the new version of Excel. I can't remember which version it was. This was back like Excel 95 or whatever.
Jeez.
But he's so fast and so more efficient with Excel, he gets his work done an hour sooner a day. And so what does he do? He goes home and he plays with the kids, and his wife's happy that he's there and everything else. And Microsoft ran that, and it dropped like a bomb, right? And why did it drop like a bomb? What really happens when you get your work done quicker?
Get more work.
They give you more work.
Yep.
That's exactly right.
You wear another hat.
Yeah, that's it exactly. It's like, oh, great, you got done. You're not going home at 4. Let me give you 20,000 more things to do.
Yep.
But the point is valid, because with AI, it does change the equation that I'm not doing the grunt work. I'm doing the important work.
Yes.
I'm putting my real brain into it. And I know, Jason, you talked about the atrophy that seems to be happening with people, around
Yes.
AI. It's only if you let it. This is actually freeing up your ability to go study and learn and go deeper than you've ever done. Don't be the lazy person that says, oh, well, now the AI did it. I'm going to go, watch The Bachelor on television or whatever. I don't know. Pick a show.
I don't know if you guys have been to IKEA's website recently or have bought something from them, but they have a new kind of chat bot that handles a lot of customer inquiries. So where's my bill? How much do I owe? What should I do along with this? And it's kind of does that suggestive selling and all that kind of thing. So what IKEA was faced with a choice. What do we do with now all these customer service agents that we have in our call center that had been handling all of that as inbound calls and emails to our team? And now they don't have those inbound calls and emails. They decided to reinvest in those people and turn them into interior design consultants that worked directly with the customers to suggestive sell, to help implement and box and make like large scale recommendations, now strategic recommendations of how to use IKEA's products in their house. And IKEA made 1.4 billion incremental revenue the year that they did that.
I literally just moved. You know this. I'm 2 weeks in this house, which is why this room looks terrible.
Is that IKEA behind you?
It's all IKEA. Everything's IKEA. Actually, that is. Those are IKEA boxes and IKEA everything. But we were in there literally 2 days ago. And had you gone in, I don't know how many years ago, good luck finding someone in a yellow shirt. You could not, under any circumstances. I went in 2 days ago. They were everywhere, and they were helpful, and they were coming up, and exactly what you said. They're like, what looked great with that is this rug. And I'm like, yeah, actually, it kind of was. They were upselling. They were doing that. One last example, because I think it's right in line. Restaurants have just been getting killed, just getting slammed. Yep. The one delta of all the restaurants that's posting incredible value and earnings and dollars and sales and everything else is Chili's. And part of the reason why the same thing, you remember Chili's came out with that little kiosk that you sit, you could check out, you could order things to. You don't even need a wait person anymore, right? It's all electronic. You could do it. Number one, they said, we're a burger shop. Kill everything. We want burgers and ribs, and that's about it. Chips and guac. And that's about all you can order now. So they streamlined their deal. But most importantly, the CEO said, everyone else is cutting back their employees. Our number one goal is full staff, every shift, every deal at every Chili's. And nothing hacks you off more than waiting for a table when you see 20 tables that are open, but they don't have the wait staff for it. And Chili says, we'll never let that happen. We're going to reinvest our people. Even though we don't need them as servers to do what they used to do, we're still going to put them in. Their sales have gone absolutely through the roof.
I mean, that's something that in all aspects of all industries, people want to, or especially now, they're tired of AI. They want to interact with people, right? Like you go to McDonald's now and it's complete. You don't have to talk to a single person now. You can they order at the kiosk, they have the food, they announce it, you go up, you don't even have to talk to a person. But people miss that. They want, whether they like it or not, we're social creatures and they miss that communication. And so that retraining aspect is really key for a lot of these businesses that I feel like are missing that point, especially bigger businesses that, they're going through maybe mass layoffs and things like that. They obviously have different parameters, but especially for small businesses, that retraining point can really allow for better service, because these employees have been with you for a long time. They know your company. They can allow for better customer service, better recommendations, like you said, from IKEA. All those things can be done if you just retrain them because they know your business.
Yeah. I think you're 100% correct. And I think the biggest mistake companies are going to make is they're going to rush for profits and they're going to cut their sales force and they're going to go down to the bone. And then a year or two later, they're going to look and say, we're not seeing anything. We're getting killed. Now I got to go back and hire everyone back.
Yep. Especially right now, we just got through layoffs and then, maybe short term they get, their profit margin is better and everything. But then who knows, 3, 4, 5 years down the line when AI has consolidated now and there's not all these different products, that's when we're going to see the true effect of whether people are going to come back in or they're going to rehire or what happens.
Yep.
So much to look forward to, and I think this is a perfect high point for us to kind of wrap up here. Michael O'Neill.
Yes, sir.
What a pleasure.
I didn't spill too many secrets with my beer. We didn't even talk about our beers. I did want to shout out to Texas.
What you
Since I'm
got?
from Texas, I'm drinking Shiner here, baby. And it's a funky version of Shiner that I can't even pronounce. Orale? I don't know.
Let's see it.
Mexican-style cerveza with agave. So
Oh, I have something very similar, actually.
Oh, yeah.
I
there you
have
go.
this juicy Oasis. It's brewed in Breckenridge, and it also is brewed with agave nectar. I don't know if you can read it there.
hey,
but
the
there you
agave people
go.
are really
Yeah,
making some sales now.
exactly.
You guys didn't tell me. I just came here with the standard golden ale, but
Boring.
it's Kona's Big Wave.
Exactly.
Boring.
Just joking.
But then we got,
Make you
local.
eat those words.
This is more boring.
Ah, jeez. We're digressing really quickly.
You're 26
Michael,
now.
thank you so much for coming
Yes.
by today. And of course, Skaar.
Jason,
Always a pleasure, my friend.
appreciate you as well, Jason.
Appreciate it, gentlemen. Cheers.
Cheers.
Bots, Beers, Biz, here's at you.